Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival and to the What I Wish I Knew About Publishing panel. I am your moderator, Diana Rodriguez Wallach. I am a young adult author, and my most recent book is a YA horror novel behind me here, The Silence. It comes out in about 2 weeks, September 16th. And we have a lovely panel of very accomplished women here today. And we are going to start off with Alex Villasante. Tell us a little about yourself.
Thank you, Diana. Hi, I'm Alex Villasante, and these are my books over here. Oh my gosh, yeah, right there. I write young adult, and my first book, The Grief Keeper, came out a while back. It's now in paperback, very exciting. And then my next book comes out in 3 and a bit weeks. I don't know what time is. It's called Fireblooms, and I also am the co-founder of the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival and the Latinx Storytellers Conference, which is in 9 days, and I have some children and like pets, and it's all happening over here.
All right. How about Alyssa? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Sí, gracias. Thank you all for being here. Super excited to chismear, right? My name is Alyssa Reynoso-Morris. I am a picture book author. I'm the author of Plátano Star Love, The Bronx is My Home, Gloriana Presente, and this baby came out yesterday, Bold, Brilliant, and Latine. It's my first nonfiction book, and it's about 52 Latina heroes from the past and the present who are changing the world. And other than that, I'm a mom. I have 3 under 5. I have a 5-year-old, and then I have twins that just turned 1 on the 27th of August. What is life? I can't believe a whole year has passed. And other than that, I just like making new friends. Like, honestly, becoming an author has been the best thing for my social life because before this, I don't think I had very many friends. So this has been an amazing journey.
So nice to hear.
That's so sweet.
Adrianna?
Hi, I'm Adrianna Cuevas. I'm the author of, I think, maybe 9 now middle grade novels. The most recent, What Fell from the Sky, came out in February. The Spanish translation of The Ghost of Rancho Espanto comes out at the end of this month, September 30th. I am also a middle school ESL teacher. I just got home from work like 20 minutes ago, and I love that. I'm mom to a high school senior, and I have yet to accept that that's a reality that's happening at the moment. I'll just let you know that. Yeah, and I'm the opposite of Alyssa. The social aspect of being an author is terrifying to me, and I could just do without it. So there you go.
Totally understandable. All right, before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone to please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box. And don't forget to subscribe to the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival's YouTube channel for more educational resources. All right. So we have all kind of been in publishing for a while now. So you writers are in for a treat. We have a lot of publishing tea to spill. So I'm going to get it started with our first question, which is just about our publishing journeys. I know some authors struggle more when in the querying trenches, others trying to get a publisher, going on submission. So I'm wondering which part of the process was harder for you and what did you learn from all of your rejections along the way? So why don't you kick us off, Alex?
Yeah, so I have what I think is a little unusual in that it was kind of easy for me to get an agent, which I'm like, I got what I did was I decided to write a book because you do, and I wrote it during National Novel Writing Month 1 year, and I got 50,000 words, which is not a YA book. It's close, but it's not quite. And then I went to a local writers conference and I submitted it to an agent, and she's like, "Hey, send me the full," and I was like, "The full what?" Like I, and she's like, "You finished this, right?" I'm like, "Absolutely, I finished it." It's completely done. I just want to polish it up. Oh my God. So I did everything wrong. I met with this wonderful agent who is my agent. She asked me there for the full. I had to then pull like out of the air an extra 30,000 words that I did not have. And I sent it to her and she offered me representation. Great, right? Oh my gosh, Cinderella story. 5 years later, 4 books later, was when I sold my first book. I got rejection after rejection, near 2 acquisitions, and then past. I mean, I had it all. And it was really a wake-up call in the sense that, you feel, you have this sense. I think you said it before when we were talking, Diana, that you have this sense that if I just get an agent, that's a validation, and that means that I'm going to be okay, and it's going to be easier, I'm going to be a published author. And it is validation. It's wonderful when you get an agent, but it's only one of many, many, many steps. And every step along the way, there are going to be people who reject you. A lot. And even when you're published, and even when you're multi-published, you will still get rejections. So I likened the getting passes from the publishers to, at the time I was like, it's like being hit by a taxi, but like Ryan Gosling is driving the taxi, so it's like kind of okay, but actually not really that great. So you're like, thanks for the nice words, you're not buying my book. Okay. So that's my story.
You know, it's funny. I have a very similar story. I got an
Oh,
agent
really?
super quickly, like within 2 weeks of querying, I got an agent. And my first book got entirely rejected on sub. My second book entirely died on sub. It was my third book that ended up finally selling. And in addition to that, I'm currently on my fourth literary agent. So like I have been and all of them, I've always been able to get an agent. That has never been my problem. Getting a publisher has always been my problem. Dealing with the rejections on the back end on submission and hearing things like, oh, we love her writing. I just basically wish she wrote a different story, like we love her writing, just, so it took me a while persevering. That's what I always tell new writers. Like that's the difference between a published author and an unpublished author, is just persevering through all of those rejections that other people would say, I'm done. I mean, when everyone in your life, including like your husband and your mom, are like, are you sure you want to keep doing this? You have to keep doing it. Yeah. How about you, Alyssa?
Yes, kind of the same. I got my agent within a couple months. And I think so much of it though was timing, because I felt pretty prepared. I had done a ton of mentorship programs. I did the Las Musas mentorship program. I did the mentorship program with The Word, a storytelling sanctuary. Like I had been doing all of the things that I should have been doing, right? Like taking classes and in critique groups and getting feedback, and sometimes not great feedback, like all of those things that you do to eventually like get an agent. And then the timing of everything just like worked out in my favor. I was querying during like when publishing was having its reckoning after George Floyd's murder, and everyone was just like, oh my God, like, what are we doing? We're part of the problem, which is great, that they were doing that and that they're like, we need to do something about this. For me, right, it was great for me that they're like all of a sudden care. But now it's like, I have multiple books. My books have sold very well because I'm a hustler and I'm like out there and marketing and all this stuff. And, like my first couple books sold really, really quickly within like a couple months of each other. And now it's just like, oh, it's too niche, or, oh, there's not a market for it. And I was like, boo-boo. No.
Code. That's code for something. We can talk about that, but that's code.
And fortunately, my agent is the most amazing human being in the whole universe. And she lets me vent and like talk to her about it. And I'm just like, what's happening? She's like, it's not you. I'm like, I know it's not me. I know it's not. She's like, they're just going through it right now because of, like the way that I see it, and like what I tell a lot of like other authors is publishing is not revolutionary. They are reactive. And right now they're reacting to the current political climate and all these book bans and all this stuff that's happening. So I've probably gone on sub like 4 times already, and all of my more recent books have all been rejected, right? Which is, it's just the way it is. And it's like, okay, ya vamos. When the pendulum swings the other way, y'all gonna be like, where's Alyssa? And I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna go to my loyals. So it's just, yeah. So agenting was good. Finding an editor, same thing, has been the more challenging part.
Well, how about you, Adrianna? Do you have the same story, or is yours a little different?
It's a little different. So finding an agent was not bad. I found one rather quickly. I got to pitch my book in person at a SCBWI conference at the annual conference that Austin has where I live. And I think that made all the difference, getting to pitch it in person. It makes your book stand out from like a slush pile. So I felt really lucky to be able to do that and find my agent that way. And then that same book that I pitched sold a year later. And that was my debut. That was The Total Eclipse of Nestor Lopez. And because then my debut did so well, my publisher likes me, I guess is the best way to say it. But I did get rejections from Nestor. And I feel really lucky to have found the editor that picked Nestor, because all of the rejections that Nestor got said the same thing. They all rejected Nestor in the same way. They didn't want a story that had any magic in it. They wanted the story to be about a boy whose dad was deployed in the military and he was dealing with that. They wanted it to be a straight contemporary middle grade. That's not the kind of author that I am. That's not the kind of stories that I want to tell. So I felt really lucky to find an editor who truly understood my storytelling, who understood me. And sure enough, she's a Filipina editor. Like, I feel like it's not a fluke that I found a fellow POC editor that got my stories and got like what I'm trying to do with my books. Yeah. So I feel like, finding an editor or finding my agent, who I am like so incredibly blessed to have, she goes to bat for me all the time. She's incredible. That was not a difficult journey. Finding my editor that I have now, I think we're on our 6th or 7th book together with, has been amazing. And I've veered off into other publishers and been like, it was a poor choice. Has been fantastic, because you just develop a working relationship with somebody. But like I said, I learned from those rejections, you have to find somebody who gets what you're trying to do with your books and with your storytelling. And she does. So yeah, I'm really lucky to have found her.
That's
She's
awesome.
stuck with me now. So there you go.
That's awesome. And I know most of us have been with multiple publishers each at this point. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of marketing, because that's something that isn't talked a lot about, especially with newer writers who are watching. Also, I want to say to anyone watching, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll hopefully get to them at the end. But in terms of marketing, a lot of us hope to get into the big 5 and then find out we may not always get what we consider big 5 marketing. So I want to hear what each of your experience has been with marketing from your publishers. How do you feel about the marketing budgets for BIPOC and Latinx authors versus other authors? And then with the second part, which we can maybe get to later, or you can add it in this question, is, has there ever been anything you've done on your own that you feel has moved the needle in terms of marketing and sales? And I think this time we're going to start with Alyssa.
All right, it's my favorite topic, y'all. So strap in. Hopefully you have your pens, you have wherever you take notes, because okay, so here's the thing. I have seen the level of support that non-Latinx, non-POC authors get. And across the board, I don't think I've heard any author say that they're happy with the level of support that they get. So that kind of helps a little bit. But then when I ask them so what has your publisher done for you? there's a little bit of envy that happens there because I'm just like,
Mhm.
oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, really? That's nice. Not mad at them. Happy for them. Yes. But a little bit like, pero really? Really? You gonna do me like that? To the publisher. So after I go through that process and I bust out my ice cream and my wine, whatever my poison is that day, and I like feel my feelings and I get angry and all that stuff, then I remember why I do what I do. And at the end of the day, whether or not I get publisher support, I'm going to promote my books because I worked too hard to get these books into the hands of the kids that need them. And so I can't speak on their budgets, but what I can speak on is what I do for my books. And I am a hustler. For anyone who has been told, oh, there's nothing you can do to move the needle forward, I don't believe that. Obviously, if you have your publisher support, that would be amazing, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not going to let my publisher determine if my book is going to be a success or not. Only I can determine that. And so what I did is I did a lot of self-reflection and I'm like, what am I good at? What skills can I leverage for my marketing so I can show up in spaces as authentically as possible and so that I can connect with people? Because ultimately, people are going to buy books from you if they like you. Your book might sound really amazing. It might sound really cool. And, but at the end of the day, like there's a lot of really amazing books out there. Like no shade. Like I know we all work really hard on our books, but at the end of the day, they're going to buy the book from you because they have a connection to you. And so for me, I did a whole like skills assessment. I used to be a career coach back in my day before the author thing. And I did an assessment of all of my skills. And I'm like, okay, what am I good at? What skills do I have? And I had 15 years of event planning experience. I used to be a public speaker. I'm a teacher. So I use all of those skills to promote my books. I organize a ton of school visits. I participated in book festivals and in book fairs. I marketed in ways that made sense for my personality and for my skills. If I was an SEO person and I knew all this like back end stuff, maybe that's you. Promote your books by writing a ton of blog posts to boost your book where it appears on the search, right? Like if you have like an interesting set of skills, ask yourself, how can I use those skills in order to market my book and show up authentically? Like everyone is like, oh, social media, social media, social media. That's great, but social media doesn't sell books on its own. And so the number one thing I would say for anyone who's like, oh my God, this is awful, because it is, ask yourself, how do you feel comfortable showing up in spaces and show up in that way? Because you're going to show up authentically. People are going to connect with you. They're going to resonate with you. They're like, I like her energy. Ooh, I like this. I like that. I like this. And then you'll get invited to more stuff. Every time I do a school visit, one school visit always leads to other school visits because I kill it. And the librarians all know each other. And they're just like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And I'm like, yeah. And then they all like tell all their other librarian friends and they all invite me. So it's like, figure out what your skills are. How do you show up in like authentically, and then do that. Focus on that. Okay, Jeff.
No, that is a really, really good point because a lot of people know me from TikTok. I do have a lot of social media, but I also have a broadcast journalism degree. So when you talk about like utilizing your skill set, like I am comfortable talking to a camera. And that's something I say when I'm on writing panels. So I get put on a lot of panels now to talk about social media. And I say that I was like, well, not everybody went to school for broadcast journalism and interned at ABC. Like I have that. I know how to edit video. I know how to do all of that already. So that does help. In terms of sales, I will say, like, everyone wonders whether it moves the needle. In my opinion, I think social media, it only produces sales if it's organic from a reader, not necessarily from me, the author. What me, the author, does is get me invited to festivals, gets me invited to events. I've gotten invited to way more this past year, since my TikTok platform has been successful than I ever was before. And it's because, oh, she talks really good on camera. She must talk well in a panel. And I do. So then they bring me to a lot more events that way. And sort of what you had said that, you killed at an event, like I can kill it on a panel when I'm live, and I sell a lot of books afterwards because people just sort of like my energy when I'm on the panel. I think a lot of authors are naturally introverts, and I'm not. So it is a skill set that I can use when I'm speaking in public. So how about you, Adrianna? Oh, Alex, you saw your hand up.
I just wanted to quickly say, like, sort of jump off of what Alyssa was saying about being a hustler and being that person who sort of like gets out there and I have a lot of the same experience that Alyssa has, in the sense of I was an event planner and I'm very comfortable doing public speaking. But one of the things that I am not good at is talking about my own books. I hate it. I don't like it. But I love talking about other people's books, and I love like hyping up other people, like genuinely and sincerely. It is my joy. It's one of the reasons that with Mayra Cuevas and Ismay Williams that we started the Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. So in a strange way, my most successful marketing ploy has been amplifying other people, because it's genuinely so much like, it feels better to me. It feels like, and from my first book coming out, The Grief Keeper, was 6 years ago, to the second book coming out, the only reason that I continued to be on panels, was in 5 short story anthologies, was because I was connecting with other people and being like, I love that. Let me invite you to this. Oh, do you want to teach a class for us I also work at the Highlights Foundation. Like all that work, that hustling for the community works best for me. And I'll take that even further and say that I'm not a great salesperson for myself. I kind of suck at it. I'm famously sucking at it. But because The Grief Keeper won a Lambda Award, I'm part of the Lambda Writers in Schools program. And that has given me so much joy, because they will bring me into GSAs, to classes, to lots of classes. And then it turns out that the New York City DOE is the biggest purchaser of The Grief Keeper year over year. So that that's what's helped the sales, like being in the community. And just like Alyssa, it's not she's doing this work too, by the way. She's doing that amplification work as well. I just don't do the talking about my own stuff. I'm going to be so honest with you. I find it boring. Talking about my own. I do. I'm like, why care? All these other books sound so much better to me. So I have a problem, obviously. Don't be like me. But whatever you do to help the community will come back to you, and have you invited to those panels, and have you coming on different things. So that's my marketing tip. That's maybe the worst marketing tip ever. Okay.
How about you, Adrianna?
So I'm like Alex. Well, I'm not like any of you. I'm not an event planner. I don't like talking to people. So, fantastic marketer. I will say though, Alex nailed it in the sense that you should be talking about other people's books as much, if not more, as you talk about your own. Those of you who are not published yet, you should start your platform by boosting other people's books. You need to be in the community, reading the books that are in your genre, in your age group, boosting them. I have a Friday middle grade book rec that I post on Instagram every Friday, where I talk about the latest middle grade book that I've read. If you're only ever talking about your book, it comes off kind of inauthentic. People don't like constant self-promo. I will be honest with you. It's not a good look. So that being said, if you are going to promote your book, I will say that one thing that I did for my first 2 books, given that I'm not going to be cold calling people, because God help me, I really don't want to communicate. I mailed postcards to every single school librarian within a 3-hour radius of my house, which is a lot here in Texas. I think it ended up being like 500 some odd postcards. For my first 2 books, I did that. And I ended up scheduling for each batch of postcards enough school visits that those postcards ended up paying for themselves. Would I do that now? No, because here in Texas now, one, a lot of schools have gotten rid of their librarians. Two, we are not allowing school librarians to buy books anymore because of particular school bills that have passed. It's just a terrible political climate. But if you are in a state that's a lot better than mine at the moment, it was honestly a really good deal. I made a lot of great connections just by having a postcard that had my book on it. It had my website, little like rundown of the book. It was a great way to connect with librarians, because if you're in Kidlit, those are the people that buy your book. The Kidlit market, school librarian market is where it's at. So yeah, for me with my first two books, that was a really big deal. And my publisher noticed that I did that, and they thought, oh, wow, if she's doing all of that, your publisher tends to match your energy. And I know Alyssa kind of alluded to that. Like if you're hustling, they tend to, my publisher mentioned to my agent with my first book that they felt like they were always trying to catch up with me in terms of like my marketing efforts. And so, yeah, your publisher tends not to do anything if you're not. I mean, and sometimes they're still not going to, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, I would say, yeah, those postcards for those first two books, that was a pretty good deal. So that would be my like simple practical thing where you don't have to talk to anyone.
Until you have to go to the school visit, and then
you only have to talk to your postal clerk. My postal ladies are my best friends. Those are my besties. I have pictures with them.
Well, I know that all of us are also moms, and some of you are working multiple jobs and writing and being a mom. So I'm curious if you have any advice for writers out there about how you make time for your writing, like how you do this work-life balance. Are you working at 5 a.m.? Are you working weekends? Like, how are you getting it all done? All right, this time we start with Alex.
I'm not getting it all done. These are lies. I'm not getting it all done. I'm getting maybe 4 out of 25 things done. I do have a full-time job. I do work with the festival and with the conference. I do have children. They're older now, and they are like, "Hi, Mom," and then they disappear into the ether like they do. I don't know. But so one of the things that I'll say as a tip is, when you're working on something and you're either in drafting or revision or wherever you are, and you can't sit down, I don't actually believe in that you have to have your butt in the chair every day. I just don't think that's doable for everybody and not practical. And you don't have to write that way. That's not the only way to produce words. But I do think that you have to touch your story every day. Even just in your mind, even just when you're in the shower and you're sort of like thinking about your characters and moving them around, and like I move them around like in the space and be like, no, don't do that, have this conversation. Oh, wait, that's kind of spicy. Whatever that conversation is, whatever that scenario is, I run them through it in my mind every day. I touch something about the story every day because I want it to continue to live in my conscious mind and my subconscious mind. And that's really how I get through. Like right now is a really difficult and like busy period for me. I'm not going to get to sit down and write until October. Like genuinely, it's not going to, well, maybe late September, but that's before that, nada. But I'm still in there, like thinking about things, moving things around. And sometimes that actually gets me further down the story than if I just sat there trying to push out words.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Adrianna? I know you said that you just got back from your teaching job. So how do you manage to find time to write? Because that's an exhausting day job. That is something that drains your energy.
I got edit notes the day before school started. I thought I was going to cry. Yeah. Anyways, so writing doesn't come first for me, and my job doesn't come first. My family comes first, because I realized that publishing isn't going to put my family first. So, yeah. I would not have said that at the beginning of my career, though. I think we have to hustle a lot at the beginning of our career. So I do feel like I'm probably speaking from a place of privilege where I am pretty established. And so I feel like I can say to my editor, yeah, we went on vacation. I'm not going to turn that in at the moment. So yeah, I know that it always seems to be like things are always supposed to be in a rush on our end as authors, but they never seem to be in a rush on the publisher's end. And I got tired of that very quickly and realized that, I wasn't really going to handle that anymore. I also realized that as an author, I'm in charge of my own schedule. And as somebody with ADHD, hyperfocus really bad, that I would work 7 days a week if I wasn't really conscious of what I was doing. And I was doing that for a little bit and then was shocked when I burnt out. And so I had to really force myself to not work on the weekend ever. Even if it meant I turned things in a little bit slower, I did not care. So yeah, I feel like I would much rather spend time with my family. I would much rather, do that. But when I am on deadline, my husband and my son are pretty self-sufficient, which is good because, we're going to be eating a lot of box mac and cheese. Otherwise, my house is far from clean, y'all. Come on. This is real life. So yeah, but no, you have to decide what your priorities are, basically, when you start your career, and honestly constantly reevaluate your priorities and decide what they are, because I guarantee you your publisher does not have the same priorities. And so you really have to stand firm with what yours are. And yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, Alyssa? Has that been the same experience for you?
Absolutely. My house is a hot mess and a half. If I invite you to my house, it's because I know you're not going to judge me, and because we're bana that way. I am a mom of 3. I have 3 under 5, so it's a lot. I have a 5-year-old, and I have twins who just turned 1 a couple days ago. Like, the universe was just like, let's just throw a little extra spice your way. And so twins were not the plan. And so I had to adjust my plan. I was like, before, if you had asked me this question before I had my twins, I was really productive, y'all. Like, I was on the ball. I would hand in everything on time. Like, my type A, my name starts with an A, my blood type is A positive, and I'm a type A person. Like, that was just me. Like, I graduated with an A++ average. Like, that was me for the better part of 34 years of my life. And then I had twins, and I was just like, nothing is getting done. And so a lot of it has just been just taking it day by day. You know what I mean? Like, some days I write for 5 minutes. Some days I don't write at all. Some days I'm reading. Some days I'm focusing on marketing. Some days I'm focusing on email. Like, it's just not beating myself up has been my strategy to keep myself sane. Like, some days I try to do nothing. And it's just like you said, like, just focusing on family. Because at the end of the day, like, they are part of the reason why I do all of this, right? Like, I have daughters and I want them to see diverse books on shelves, and they are front of mind when I'm doing all the work that I'm doing. And
I think
so
that's such a good point. Yeah.
Like, there's some stuff you can do. Like, I use Trello, and Trello has helped me. It's like this like to-do list on like ultra super mega mode. It's like, I used to be a project manager, so like it helped me in my like job as a project manager, and so like now I use it for like my life, and so that helps. But work-life balance is a myth for me right now. Ask me this question again in 10 years when my kids don't rely on me as much, and we'll see. I'm on my way.
Yeah, no, I can say I can answer it 10 years from now. So, because my kids are 10 and they're 14. And when my kids were babies was when I was the least productive. I have a picture of me like in it with a baby Bjorn trying to type. And it was when I was dealing with the most rejection of my life, because I realized now that I'd wanted to write, I needed to write, but I didn't have the focus required to produce the work that I wanted to produce. And so like now that my kids are a little bit older, school started yesterday, like finally getting into my productive era. Cause like in the summer is when I can get like nothing done. I know I cannot write. So I'll focus on maybe outlining the next book or marketing or any of that type of stuff that is still part of a writer's job. But I know I cannot write words during the summer when I'm constantly like kids are running through the house and I've got to go to camp and you've got to just drop things, vacation here, that. So now I'm going to move into my writing season and just sort of like accept the school year. Like when the bus leaves, I can work. Oh my God, it was so quiet yesterday. I can't even tell you. I know like Adriana's like back in the classroom. I'm the opposite. It was like my house was me and the cats. We had like the best day.
I was almost going to teach my students how to like, hey guys, you want to learn how to do line edits?
I love that.
Wait, this could work. Hold on, Adriana. I think we could work this. We can funnel them into all. Come on, they can do all of our work.
I'm just gonna raise a bunch of future editors.
And maybe we can like train them by making them do our stuff. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
I'm on board for this. Yes.
All right. So this question is about something positive that I want to share with the group. And if there has ever been a time in your career where somebody in the publishing industry gave you a much needed boost or a much needed piece of advice or a helping hand that you look back on and you realize that that person went out of their way, that's unusual in this industry. And have you then ever paid it forward? How about we start with Adriana?
Oh, I got easy one. Cynthia Leidig-Smith is she was based here in Austin. Before I think I had already signed with my agent, but we hadn't sold the book yet. She took me out to lunch and she said, you can ask me absolutely anything you want about publishing. She would do that with any newly agented author as that was part of our Austin SCBWI group. And so I did. I got to pick her brain about anything and everything publishing. And it was just so valuable because I feel like a lot of times in publishing, there's so much information for when you're trying to get published, like you're trying to get an agent. And then you get one and it's like, okay, good luck. There's like nothing else. And I don't know. I just really was so grateful for her to take care of me in that way. And she was so honest and kind. And so, yeah, I just am forever grateful for her. And you can see what she's done in the publishing industry and starting the Heart Drum imprint for Native stories at HarperCollins. Like, that's just the type of author that she is to mentor and uplift authors like that. And so, yeah, I am forever grateful for her. And so her doing that kind of showed me just the importance of mentoring. And so like I wanted to mentor through Las Musas. I mentored through Pitch Wars. Like, it's just important to kind of try to help guide. This can be a frightening and industry. And so, yeah, no, I'm forever grateful for Cynthia for doing that. I've never done that because I don't want to do a like tell me everything you know about publishing like for somebody, because I'm afraid I'd tell them all the wrong things. So yeah. But no, I'm grateful for Cynthia for doing that for me.
That's awesome. She is such a legend in this industry and has always been back in like the blogger days. I remember her just dispensing so much wisdom on all of us.
Giselle was one of my mentees. So
that's awesome. How about you, Alyssa?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my journey would not be possible hadn't it been for people helping me along my journey. Like, it was Mia who created like the mentorship arm of Las Musas. And then she was the one who was like, let's do this. And then Donna Barbahiguera became my mentor and love her to death. Like, she's amazing. And then, like people like Alex, like you keep me Like you're my go-to. Like you're such a like amazing cheerleader, like reviewing books and the festival and highlights and like working your connections to like hook us up when we need it, and yeah, like that's just been like the story of my whole life. Like people in this panel that are like in the audience, like Jasmine brought me into her school and Delia reviews my books. And it's just like I can go on. Like the list of people who have helped me along the way goes on. And I try my best to just like do a sliver back, like me, like whenever I can, I try to include people because I write articles for like Me Too and I write articles for like Hip Latina and stuff. So like I try to like include as many of our folks as I can in those. I try to review as many books as I can. Recently, not so much because twins, this past year I have been slacking on that. So yeah, I'm sorry. But historically, like trying to review as many books as possible. I also did mentorships. So I was a mentor through We Need Diverse Books and PB Book Chat. And then hopefully this upcoming year be a Las Musas mentor. So yeah, it's all love, right? Like I had so many people that made sure. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Jasmine. I love you. And so I'm always trying to like pay it back,
Yeah. How about you, Alex?
So I think that it's funny because you started off by saying this is a hard industry, and it is a hard industry, and there's there's not much of a roadmap. There's not much, it's hard out there. At the same time, in particular for our industry with Kidlit and even more Nuestra Comunidad, I'm telling you, I couldn't pick out just one example. There are so many. And as I was listening to Adriana and Alyssa, I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm gonna just tell you one, and then I'm gonna tell you like probably more than one. Anyway, I will start with before I was published, I went to a summer camp live in person at Highlights Foundation, and my mentor was Anna Marie McLemore. Now, I am a giant Anna Marie McLemore stan, like from way back. Like their books, like absolutely melt my heart and mess up my everything. Everything's gooey, and I don't know what to do with myself, and I'm crying and laughing, and they're amazing. So they were my mentor, and I was like, oh my god. One day we're just like standing by, I don't know, Danishes or like a cookie or something, and they just go, well, you know what'd be fun? Maybe we can exchange pages someday. Like treating me like an actual like equal. They don't know, like inside I'm like, oh, but they were just like, yeah, let's exchange some pages, let's keep in touch, and meant it. And that's really just one example. I mean, you guys mentioned Mia Garcia, Aida Salazar, with starting the Musas, where that's even knowing that that's possible. Wait, this kind of camaraderie and fellowship is possible. In person, you bring out these people's names, but behind the scenes, somebody says, "Hey, I need someone to fill in for a panel." I'm like, "I got someone for you." Constantly putting people, it's like a circle. I can't tell you how many people that have worked for the festival are also now working for the conference, are also working for Highlights, and I'm like, I know some cool people. Like, it's constantly bringing in your community. So I think that publishing is hard, no doubt, but Nuestra Comunidad is something special. And I don't see that in any other that I know of. I don't see it everywhere else.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it can feel very solitary when it's just you and your computer writing. But when you get to meet other authors, they're the only ones who understand what it is you do and what you're going through. And so there have been a lot of authors who have helped me along the way, like getting another agent, or I have helped introduce them to their, future agent. And even honestly, I had probably the best piece of advice, and this, Alex, I do for Highlights when I do the course that's coming up as part of my workshop, is I once got a rejection on a book that had been like, it was just really going through so many different editors, and they were going to acquisitions, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with this book. And it was finally this editor at a small press. Her name was Ellen Larson. I don't even know if she was still there. It was a Poison Pencil or Poison Pen, who wrote me this super long rejection letter that said, I know why your book isn't selling. I'm just going to tell you, you know what I mean, that she had spent 20 years in like editing mystery books. And at this point, I had never written a mystery or thriller before as my first attempt. And she really broke it down. And one of the things she told me was that I needed to figure out the motivations of every single character, not just my main character in this whole thing. And it was so long and detailed. And she went back and forth on email with me several times. And what I learned from her, I now apply to every book, that I use going forward. I sold that book after I did that revision, and I now teach that revision when I do workshops for highlights, because it was a game changer. And I know that most editors don't do that. Most agents don't do that. I mean, there are plenty that aren't very editorial. So to get that kind of feedback where you're just like, oh my God, that's it. And I try to even do that now with other writers, like beta reading, even if it's not a mentorship, but if they're telling me this book just keeps getting rejected and I don't know why, I'll read it and I'll be like, okay, this is why I think it's getting rejected. And sometimes I nailed it. I can read it in someone else's work, but not your own, you can see what's going wrong in someone else's book, but man, you got blinders on your own. All right. So how about we do one more question? We'll try to do it quick before we go to the questions in the chat. And that is just what we think is next for Kidlit, because we each represent a different genre in the Kidlit space. We've got picture books and middle grade and young adult. So I'm curious, what changes have you seen in your little genre since you started publishing? And what do you think is going to happen in the future with your genre? Any advice? We'll start with Alyssa.
So as a picture book writer, I've heard this from a lot of other picture book authors, and my agent has said this, other agents have said this: picture book is dead. Not to be gloomy or mean or disheartening, but right now what I have heard is that editors were acquiring too many picture books, and then picture books don't sell as well because they cost so much to produce, between having to hire an author and an illustrator, and then the production of 32 colored spreads versus ink on paper for just the words. And so they had to tamper that down. Not to say don't write picture books. I'm still writing them. It's just right now they're not selling. At least that's what I've heard.
Yeah, I actually heard the same thing, not to interject, but I heard the exact same thing, because I was debating. I have written a couple scripts for picture books, and the agents at my agency were like, don't sub it right now. Yeah, they're like,
keep writing them.
Tariffs and stuff, they're afraid of it getting printed in China or paper coming from Canada. Yes. And that they're like, just wait. Yeah,
exactly. That would be the advice. Wait, still write them, but maybe don't put too much stake in putting them on sub right now. Or if your agent is open to it, they can go on sub, but just know that it might sit on sub for a while. Figure out the best strategy with your agent if you have one.
Yeah. How about you, Adrianna? What are you seeing with middle grade?
With middle grade, both as an author and then also honestly as an educator, reading levels have gone down since the pandemic. So we need shorter middle grade. So and I mean sub 50K, even if it's a fantasy. So yeah, really consider your word counts. Graphic novels are huge. Kids are absolutely devouring graphic novels. So yeah, spooky is really in, which makes my heart really happy. Yeah. So I would say keep doing spooky and adventure. That's really in. Yeah. But yeah, really be mindful of word count, because all we hear from librarians are that kids don't have the reading stamina that they used to. So that's one thing.
Yeah, I can echo the spooky in the YA genre. I mean, obviously my last 3 books have all been young adult horror, and it wasn't writing to a trend. I just happened to hit it when horror kind of boomed. And I've been asked that on panels before. They're like, why do you think horror is booming right now? And when I think back to the first young adult horror book I did was Small Town Monsters. It came out in 2021. I wrote it in 2019, the lead up to the election. And I'm like, it was dark, I know we all think of the pandemic as being a dark time, but that was the first administration that shall not be named. And so like it was a dark time, and it could be why I wrote a book about a cult. Maybe mimicking something I was seeing out there.
And most librarians, their libraries are genreified now. So like the books, it's not like, alphabetical by author, all of that. It's if a kid likes adventure, there's a section for that. But the thing to keep in mind, if you're sitting here going, oh, but I don't like to write spooky, or, oh, I don't want to write a graphic novel, that's fine. Kids still always need all kinds of stories. There are kids out there who have zero desire to read a spooky book. So yeah, kids still need all kinds of stories. So still write the book that you want to write,
How about you, Alex? What are you saying?
Yeah, I find it really interesting because I write queer speculative. Apparently, I also write love stories. That's what the marketing people keep telling me, but I suck at romance. I'm like the least romantic person you've ever met, which is funny because on the same time, when I write kissing scenes, my like writing partners are like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." So some of this is about marketing. Some of this is about how the publishers are going to spin your book. So I always think I'm writing about families, and I'm always writing about families and about difficult topics. And then, it's just like you wrote a queer romance with speculative elements, which I did. But I also feel like that's part of that is the marketing and the branding. As far as trends go, what I am hearing, and we're all having these like come to mama, come to papa conversations with our publishers and our editors, and I am hearing that they want YA that is edgier, aged up, and has crossover appeal, because a lot of adults are picking up. Adriana's face was hilarious. Your face was just like no, but that's a lot of adults.
I have no
are
inside
picking up
face.
YA. That was the least poker face ever.
Yeah.
But it's so when I'm taking that on board, I'm not taking it as don't tell me what to write or how dare you not appreciate me. I'm thinking, okay, I still write what I write. There is an opportunity here in how I put that on the page. And that might be bringing some things forward and putting other things back. It doesn't change that I'm going to write the things that I care about. I'm not going to suddenly write like straight theater camp like hijinks. It's just like, do I look like a hijinksy person to you? No, I don't. So I'm going to write what I write. But I think thinking about what the market, just being aware of what the market is and where it's going, doesn't mean you're changing what you're writing, but you're just taking it into account. You want to go in with your eyes open. You want to know what's happening. And as Mia Garcia put into the comments, what is happening right now in 1 to 2 years will absolutely change. I remember very clearly when people were like, middle grade is dead.
Yeah.
YA is dead. And I'm like, everybody dies and zombies all over the place. Everybody dies and gets resurrected. That's it.
That's so true. That's 100% true. All right. We've only got a few minutes left, so we're going to take some questions from the chat. And I think we have one about finance that we were going to talk about. All right. So it says, what do you wish you'd known about the financial side of publishing that could help debut authors set realistic expectations? Advances, royalties, long-term career planning. I will actually start off this one, which saying you will notice that a lot of the people on this panel have day jobs. Okay, so just like take with that what you will. I always say that the reason that I am a full-time author is because I am married to someone with a good paying job and health insurance. I have 2 children. I could not afford, healthcare, honestly, off of my publishing money. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a reasonable thing. So just keep that in mind. When you see authors out there who are writing full-time, you don't know what their financial circumstances are behind the scenes and how they're able to do that. And a lot of the most successful authors out there, I was just on a horror panel with Paul Tremblay, whose book was turned into a movie by M. Night Shyamalan. He's still a middle school teacher coaching JV basketball. So just put that into perspective, okay? Like I'm not saying you won't get a great advance and that you won't, earn out, and all of those things are possible, but it's not guaranteed. It's not a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's not planning for college tuition because it's a project by project basis. So how about a couple of you who have day jobs? I'll start with you, Alex. What do you have to say on finances?
So I have two pieces of advice. The first is maybe controversial because you can think of it two ways, but a large advance isn't always your friend. Now, a large advance is great if you can get it. And I do see, I've talked to a lot of other people who are like, listen, BIPOC people should be getting those big advances too. We should be pushing for those big advances. And I agree. Like, we should be able to get the same kinds of advances that are ¿cómo se dice? El otro lado. You know what I mean?
Counterparts.
As our contemporaries. Yes.
Los blanquitos.
Okay, I wasn't going to say that, but go ahead. Pero what I will say is because, an advance is, there's a lot of expectation with a big advance of earning out, and that can affect your next book. And also there's something really wonderful about earning out. And if you don't know what earning out is, it means that you have sold enough books against your initial advance payment that you are now making, you're making your royalties. Your royalty statements are per book that you sell, you're getting that royalty percentage. So just think about that when you're deciding between a big five, which is wonderful, or a smaller independent publisher. Another thing, a smaller independent publisher might be able to not give you a big advance, but they might be able to give you something that you value, like simultaneous publishing in English and Espanol, which a big five may not be able to do or may not be willing to do. So it's not just about the advance. And my second thing is so mundane, but I'm going to say it. You get your advance and it's a lot of money all at once. And you take that sucker and you put 25% away for the tax man. I swear you must do it. I know it hurts. I know you just want to go off and go on your nice vacation, and maybe you can, but you take that money and you put it like you don't even see it, like it doesn't exist, because you pay your taxes first. That's it.
How about you, Adrianna?
I would say it's a matter of how comfortable are you with an inconsistent income? Because there have been some years where, in all honesty, I have made a lot of money because I signed 3 contracts with 3 different publishers, and wow, we had a great year. But then I spent the next 2 years writing out those contracts, so I wasn't bringing in any money, and those were really lean years. And then a girl needs health insurance. That's why I'm back teaching, in all honesty. I adore teaching. I love it. I love my kids that I work with, but I needed health insurance. That's why I went back in the classroom. So yeah, it's how cool are you with an inconsistent income? Because that is absolutely what being in publishing is. I get really stressed out when it comes to finances. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed a steady paycheck. I needed to know exactly how much I was going to make each month. So that's another reason I went back in the classroom, so that my publishing income could be just cake, I guess you could say. Yeah, it can be really stressful, honestly. Publishing finances can be really stressful if you have to rely on them. And I hate that makes publishing for the privileged, for people who can treat it like a hobby, who can treat it like something extra. We should be allowed to treat it like it's our career. But unfortunately, because of the way it's set up, it gets treated like it's only for people who can treat it like it's a side job. But that's the nature of the way it is right now. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
How about you, Alyssa?
Yes to everything that has been said. This year in particular has been a really rough year for me financially, because I actually got laid off because of the fun federal Trump cuts. I worked for a nonprofit. We lost all our federal funding. And so I got laid off in March. So I had, a job, and then I do the writing and the school visits and consulting. And just kind of like piecemeal a bunch of stuff together while currently applying for jobs that will grant me the flexibility that I need because I have children. So it is rough. And, like I've heard, like I know like it sucks when like authors are charging for stuff. Like, trust me, I wish I could read everyone's manuscript for free, and I wish I could do all of the consulting for free, and I wish I could like help everybody for free. If all of my expenses were paid for, and by expenses, I literally have not gone to get my hair done in like 5 years, or gone to get my nails done in like 5 years. Like just like my basic essentials, like paying for food and utilities and my mortgage. Like if those things were paid for, I would just do everything for free because that's really all I spend money on, the basics. But that's why I charge for things, like and it sucks and it's icky, and I know like most people get it, but some people don't, and they talk ish, and I'm just like, I hear you, but I have kids, and
Can I
have
also say about that,
babies.
Alyssa, that we have to charge, and this is why, like, when we could, we started paying like people when like for the conference and festival. We gotta value our own work. We have to.
Yeah.
And if we're not, if we're watching people and we're looking at them and giving them ish, as you say, and saying like they should be doing this for free, think about where you would be in that same position. You have to pay us for our work because you want to get paid for your work.
Right.
We
Oh,
do a
yeah.
lot for free. You do a lot for free.
I do.
Yeah.
I do a lot for free, and I try not to. I try to strike a balance. But it's hard having inconsistent income. Like when I got laid off this March, I cried for a really long time. I was like, this is literally the worst time to get laid off because I just gave birth to twins. But we're here. Fortunately, we are very thrifty and saved up when things were better. And now we're just living really lean. But so just make sure you don't rely on the income. Like Andrea said, like Adriana said, like it's cake. This is not like income, it's cake.
Yeah. And it's only, I feel, the arts that are really asked to often donate their time and to do things for free. You wouldn't expect a lawyer to do it for free. You wouldn't expect a stockbroker to do it for free, but people ask you to write their memoir.
Marginalized folks times 100. Like,
yes.
So it's the arts. And then if you're marginalized and, why aren't you giving back to the community? Like, because we need to live. We need to live, and we need to be able to, like keep going because our stories matter. We all know that your stories, who's listening to this, watching this, they matter. So if they're going to continue to matter and be in the real world, we need to support financially sometimes, go and buy the books that you love from the people that you see. Do that. Absolutely. Or check it out from the library because that counts too. Okay, I'm done.
Yes. All right. Well, I think we have hit the time part. Is there any more questions that we can get to, or I believe we are wrapping this up? I think
Gisele's one question.
We have one more question. All right. With the current political climate, how do you recommend querying writers strategize their pitches, especially for socially minded projects? So if you're talking about pitching agents, I would start by saying that almost all literary agents have some social media footprint at this point. They have to be as chronically online as we do. So in addition to just going to the query tracker and looking at what genres they represent, I also would recommend going to their social media pages and checking out their reposts, checking out their likes and stuff. They may not be posting political content, but you might see it in their reposts and their likes or their comments to give you an idea of whether this is somebody that would be the right person to champion your project. I'm not criticizing anyone, I'm just saying like you want somebody who is going to be the best person for what you are writing. That would be my advice. I wouldn't change what you're writing to fit the current political climate or to fit some editor or agent's view. I'm just saying how to find that right agent for you. I also always recommend people go to the acknowledgements page of books that are similar in focus as your own and see who's thanked in the acknowledgements and query that agent as well. How about you, Adriana? What is your recommendation?
Yeah, honestly, definitely don't change anything. Write the book you need to write for sure, 100%. but yeah, no, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I mean, agents always have like manuscript wish lists that can be author specific sometimes. But yeah, I think in our current climate, it does not hurt to maybe do a little internet stalking of what agents are liking and reposting and seeing if they are a good fit for you. And then, yeah, I think just seconding what you said, like looking at other books that are of a similar vein and seeing what, who the agent was. But yeah, 100% don't change what you wrote. You got to stay true to yourself, because it'll bite you in the butt if you change something just to fit somebody's taste, because you get asked to edit and change so much down the line. Sometimes it gets hard to stay true to yourself. Then you don't want to do the work for them ahead of time, I think, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And one of my other tips I always give to querying writers is you're going to get a list from that agent when you get the call of referrals, authors you can reach out to, but they know that those authors are going to say wonderful things about them. So find other authors that they also represent and DM them. I reply to all of my DMs, ask them honestly, find authors who used to be represented by that agent and are no longer, and DM them and see if they'll respond. And that will also give you an idea of whether you're pitching the right person for your project. How about you, Alex?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say, all of this is gold and very true. But I will say again, queries are also marketing. They're how you market yourself to your agent. So if you have done the research on the agent and this is somebody that you want to work with because you know that they'll believe in this kind of work that you're doing, and I 100% co-sign, never change what you're writing, because you get to say that. That's you. You get to say what you write. But when you're querying, you're also trying to tell them where it fits, who they can sell this to, where it fits in the marketplace. So if you're doing that, you're trying to put in marketing language that says, this is, like for one of my books, this is a speculative romance. Now, I know in my head that to me, it's a big story about big themes and family, lo que sea. But you know that right now in the marketplace, romance is big, for example, or like a speculative or a fantasy or magical twist. So those are the things that you put into the language so that the agent sees that you understand the market. So you have a great story, you're a great writer. They already have that in the whatever the pages or the samples that you're sending along, whatever the query requests. But they also that you understand the marketing piece and you understand how to put that lens on your work. Again, your work doesn't change, but how you're presenting the work in the query does change.
100% what Alex said. Like, the only time I have ever changed my manuscript after it was rejected by an agent or an editor was if the feedback that they gave resonated. Like they might have seen like a glaring thing that I didn't see, that my critique partners didn't see, and it's like, oh, that's a great point, I'm going to change it because that makes sense. But other than that, like, I don't change the body of my work based on a rejection, but I do change the pitch, like Alex said. So I hope that helps.
Awesome. So we're just going to go around and do a last minute plug for anything you've got, and then we'll close out and thank everybody. But so again, I'm Diana Rodriguez Wallach. My latest book, The Silence, is like Girl Interrupted meets Poltergeist. So if you want to read about a haunted, abandoned girls' reform school that is based on a real reform school outside of Philadelphia, check it out. It comes out on September 16th, and it's set in Delco, my hometown. And you can find me on TikTok. I'm there all the time, and I do respond to DMs. I'm also on Instagram. Just search my name. You'll find me up there. How about you, Alyssa?
The best way to find me is through my website. There's a contact me section there, so you can feel free to email me. The other place I spend a lot of time in is Instagram, and recently on Substack. I am a Substack girly these days, and I love it there. So if you're on Substack, find me there. So website, Substack, Instagram.
Adrianna?
Yeah, so What Fell from the Sky, and then the Spanish edition of The Ghost of Rancho Espanto is coming out later this month. And then I got to see cover art for my book that's coming out next year. Yeah, I'm super excited. And then, yeah, I'm on Instagram, except Texas banned cell phones in schools, so I'm not on Instagram during school. So,
Alex?
So not this coming weekend, but the next weekend, you will see me in the Scholastic building, like running around like a headless chicken at the Latinx Storytellers Conference. That should be fun. So if you're coming, please say hello because I want to see you. I am on Instagram and I'll put it because it's a weird handle. I'll put it in the thing. My next book called Fireblooms comes out September, thank you, September 30th. It is a queer, obviously Latinx, because I don't know how to write about other people, speculative romance. And it's about a town, like a failed utopia that makes kids pay for the words they use, and how two people come to this town and have very different reactions to it and have to deal with who they are and how they find each other. Also, there's kissing. And that's it. Yeah.
Awesome.
That was so ramshackle. I'm sorry.
Thank you for being here tonight. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of the 2025 Latinx Kidlit Book Festival.